President, at this time, moving on with the agenda, I believe we've reached a point of public comment regarding the DOJ, Department of Justice Police Report.
Okay, thank you. At this time, again, I stated that we were moving the public comment remarks up first. Along with that, any council person at this time that wants to make a comment to the public regarding this or your sentiments, you now have that opportunity. Each will be given 2 minutes to say what it is that you would have to say. And then at that time, we will open it up to the public, to the public to come first, and then the mayor to follow. Any council members have anything that they would like to say at this time to the public about this, about the DOJ report? That is where we are. Councilwoman Edwards.
Thank you.
Yes. 2 minutes is the time per council person. Mr. Garcia, thank you.
Noted.
It made my anxiety level I just want to say first and foremost, thank you to the Department of Justice and to those who had a part in activating the investigation. I think that it was long overdue and it was something that the city needed to shed light and provide transparency on the happenings in our police department. Many people have been victims to a lot of injustices out of our police department, including police officers. I won't exclude them because our minority officers are suffering. There's a blue wall in our police department, and a lot of people are afraid to speak up. A lot of people in our community have been afraid to speak up, and this investigation provided an opportunity for people to do that in a safe manner. And even still, a lot of people still have fears to speak up. I have received countless messages and emails and phone calls over the last year since that DOJ investigation was announced. And I sympathize with them because I too was a victim of this police department as a teenager. My family members were. I watched injustices happening, excessive force, beatings, chasing, shootings. It's no secret that this police department has not lived up to the standards that our community needs. We need safety. And a lot of us have not been safe or have felt safe for a long time. And I will not sugarcoat that. So I have spoken with our mayor, and he is very open. So I will say that I have personally requested us to form a civilian complaint review board, as I have been a part of the demands. I have been leading and a part of protests and rallies at our police department over the past decade, and that's no secret either. So I stand before you as your representative to let you know this is not going to fall between the cracks, and I will make sure, along with my other council colleagues, that we will have justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council people? Council Vice President and then Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Good evening. I concur with Councilwoman Edwards' sentiments with regard to this. I'm glad that an investigation was done, and I'm glad that aspects of Trenton policing have come out and come to light and have been highlighted in such a way where they're spelled out, where it's not just accusatory, it's not just pointing the finger, it's not just saying, oh, you see this video, this is what happens. This was an actual investigation into particular acts, and not all acts, as we understand, have been investigated. This has been going on for much longer than it needs to have gone on. And we can understand and be clear that this is not just a local issue. This is a national issue where we have cultural issues when it comes to policing and residents. This is beyond training. We're trained, our police officers are trained in the academy, but that training goes out the window half the time when they come on the force, and they have supervisors and other superiors who are not working ethically, who are not leading in the way that they need to be leading, and are looking in other ways. We have officers coming onto the force, quite frankly, some that should not be officers, and are doing things that they know are wrong, but it's accepted. It's an acceptance across the board. That's where we really need to be paying attention when we're looking at this and when we're trying to make changes within our police force. The relationships need to be built. We have a blatant disrespect across the board between our citizens, our residents, and our police officers, and arrogance. And I'm really glad that this came out. I'm glad it's being addressed. We need to talk about accountability, and I'm elated to hear everybody's responses tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. So in light of the investigation, as we all know, it is very troubling to find out all of the findings that were there. But I want to take the time out to say thank you to the Department of Justice for opening up this investigation, and to all of those who actually participated. I know there were a lot of community discussions, and a lot of the community were allowed to have input, as well as the investigations that were going on in the department. But I also just want to take a moment just to thank our law enforcement officers, because you do a job that is challenging. And I want to say, I know that every officer in there is not a bad cop. So I want to put that out there as well, because we do have some great officers who serve in our police department. However, all of the things that we found out, and not that any of it, most of it was a surprise to me to know that some of the things that were happening. And so we need the accountability. We need an apology. We need someone to take the responsibility of what has occurred in this department. As far as the trainings, as I'm reading through the report, it said it failed to provide crucial trainings to our police officer. Now that right there in itself is like, why are we not training our police officers? And as we know, this world is evolving, things are changing. And so we need our police officers to also be trained as well. It starts at the top. The leadership, we got to take responsibility. We got to take accountability for what is going on. Make sure that this is addressed. Make sure that someone is held accountable. I'm finding out also just from different conversations that we have police officers who have blatantly and admitted and been found guilty on certain things, and then get sent back into the police department, but then they're in internal affairs and has a layup job and is not even put back out on patrol. These things are not fair. These things are, it's just unbelievable that I found this out the other day, that someone would actually go into an internal affairs position and was found guilty of doing some harmful things to some of our people. So again, I'm committed to working alongside my colleagues, obviously our law enforcement, our administration, the community, to ensure that these changes that we have are enacted quickly. We all have to take accountability. We have to make sure things are being done correctly. So I stand on the side of our community, and we got to definitely make sure that things are done better in the future as far as our police department. Our community deserves to feel safe. And so we want to make sure that happens soon. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia, is the clock broke? Was the clock broke? Okay. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Council President. Really wish I could be there tonight, but I had to be away at a work conference that I could not, of course, move. But I'm just going to be plain spoken as best I can. I'm disgusted and embarrassed by what was reported. What was reported was unconscionable. It should never happen again in this city. All Trentonians should feel safe and respected, and know that their constitutional rights will not be violated. And in this day and age, our police are under great scrutiny. And sadly, that is as it should be. There are bad officers, but there are many, many good officers too. Most of the Trenton Police Department it's full of good officers, and they deserve our respect, our hope, and our prayers. But the bad officers on our force are destroying the image of our city to others, and while they destroy the sense of safety and security for many Trentonians, and that should never happen. I too look for an apology. I too look for reforms, and we need the Trenton Police Department to start the reforms as soon as possible if they haven't already started. We also need the Trenton Police Department to begin walking beats again as they did long ago. They must know our citizens, they must know our residents before the residents have to call the non-emergency number or 911. Most citizens do want to know their police officers who are serving them, and walking beats is an investment in public safety, what used to be known as community policing. Future training, as my colleague stated, must happen, but it has to be in person. It can't just be something on a computer. In addition, there's obviously a need for more cultural competency training, and it's necessary to cover many groups. It's necessary to cover immigrant community, LGBTQ people, and other identified groups. And I look forward to hearing what our 30, 60, 90-day plan is, and then going forward. So thank you very much. And let's improve this city, and let's improve our police department.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Frisbee.
Thank you, Council President. So I'm appreciative of the DOJ report. I was there when the AG came to town and they asked for our young folks and the people in the room to come up and speak about what's going on. And I recall a line of individuals who came up. And as they took notes, it surprised me how almost half of the room stood up with a complaint. I am in complete agreement with my colleagues. We have a great deal of officers that I do trust with my life. We have a great deal who are good officers. And those officers, we need to make sure that they don't feel like they're being beaten down or beat up upon. But for those that are doing things that have come out in this report, we are not going to pacify that. They have to be held accountable. And just like we would have to be held accountable. So our community deserves to feel safe. Our community deserves to know that those who are held to the highest standard of upholding the law, that the law is going to be upheld with them as well, that there are no two sets of law, that one that are for them and one that's for us. So I'm grateful for the report. I'm really shocked at a lot of stuff that came out of it. I am disheartened. And my thoughts, as with everything, as we are in this technology age, ready or not, cameras are out, so the truth is going to come out one way or the other. So whether you want it to come out, whether you're ready for it to come out, whether you have a badge or not, your truth is going to be everybody else's truth, especially when they can put it on Facebook, when they can put it on social media. So I look forward to what is going to come of this in our city moving forward and growing stronger because we have this.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So I'd like to say thank you to the DOJ for the report. I want to say thank you to the mayor and the administration for cooperating and doing what it is and answering questions. And to those that came forward and spoke up, thank you for that as well. Thank you to all the good men and women that serve on Trenton Police and doing your job every day to protect and serve. We appreciate you. Page 2 of the report says Trenton has paid out more than $7 million since 2021 to resolve lawsuits stemming from accusations of officer misconduct. Some Trentonians have lost faith in their police department due to these continued failures. It goes on to say, while TPD's policies generally follow standards set by the New Jersey Attorney General, we found that officers do not adhere to these mandatory requirements. Reform will require ensuring that TPD has procedures to enforce these standards and measure compliance. Page 13 at the bottom, TPD's unconstitutional practices deeply impact the Trenton community. It is time out for the nonsense here in the city of Trenton. Everyone needs to be held accountable. Again, kudos to those that do the good things, but to the bad, if you want to steal time, if you want to beat people for no reason, if you want to disrespect and talk down to people, then you need to go. It is beyond the point of a slap on the wrist. Yes, I do believe that training is important, but if they're not listening to the training that is being put down, and if the training is not being enforced, then we are wasting everyone's time in the process. I do think that mental health needs to be addressed with these police officers. They do need to have some kind of routine check-ins to make sure that they're okay. They're out in the street all the time. They're seeing some pretty graphic and bad things. I don't know how I would feel seeing someone being shot, stabbed, or anything, and then I have to get back up and go back out and continue to work again and again. There is no excuse for disrespect. There is no excuse for hurting an innocent person. There is no excuse for excessive force. I went through the Police Civilian Academy with my colleagues up here. We learned about excessive force. Taking advantage of your position is not right. It's not fair, and it's not going to continue to take place here in the city of Trenton. There have to be consequences to these actions. Thank you. At this time, we will now hear from the public. You have the sheet?
I do.
Again, to those that are going to come forward, we are sticking to the recommendations that are here in the report, and we had copies of the report out on the table for those that didn't have it. We're sticking to the recommendations. We are here to hear what it is that you have to say as far as these go, what we agree with, what you disagree with, what you would like to see in place to help us to collectively figure out what it is that we can do to help put practices in place to help our city. Mr. Garcia.
Certainly. One moment, Madam President. We do have 2 spaces left.
Okay, every person that speaks gets 4.5 minutes to speak. That totals 45 minutes. We will hold to the time, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Osaria. We will hold to the time. At 4.5, we're shutting the mics off so we can move and keep this timely.
At 4 minutes and 30 seconds, we will mute.
Thank you. The
First person
recommended
for public-
measures start on page 38 in the back of the report. Mr. Garcia.
I'm sorry. Who's that?
I was saying to the public that the recommended remedial measures start page 38 of the report. Thank you. And council, we all have copies up here as well. Thank you.
First person for public comment for DOJ Justice Report is Halbert Clark. Please do state your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening. My name is Halbert Clark. I'm from Trenton Branch, P.O. Box 1355, Trenton, New Jersey, 08607. Good evening, members of Trenton City Council. My name is Halbert Clark, and I stand before you as the Criminal Justice Co-Chair of the Trenton NAACP, representing the voices of the countless residents who demand accountability and change in how our police department operates. We are all aware of the findings of the Department of Justice. We, with the Trenton NAACP, speak to you today with 2 specific demands. First, Police Director Steve Wilson must be removed. The facts are clear. Director Wilson has overseen the department during much of the troubling 5-year look-back period. His history is tied to troubling units like the Proactive Unit, Alpha Squad, and the Jump Out Boys unit, units infamous for their aggressive and harmful tactics. More concerning, he elevated colleagues from those very units, promoting them to leadership positions, including that of internal affairs. This is the same internal affairs division implicated in recent lawsuits for both within and outside of the department, covering up allegations of sexual harassment, racial discrimination, and creating barriers for citizens attempting to file complaints. This unit's behavior mirrors what we've seen with the New Jersey State Police and highlights of systematic failure under Wilson's leadership. Let's be clear. This is Steve Wilson's police department, and it is failing us. He must step down, or you, as our city leaders, must take action to ensure his removal. Second, we need a community-led police review board. Some might argue that New Jersey courts have declared these boards unconstitutional, but let's set the record straight. The issue isn't their existence. It's about who holds subpoena power over the police. And here's the truth. You, the city council, already have that subpoena power. The 2020 Newark Civilian Review Board court ruling itself acknowledges the subpoena power is tied to your legislative authority. And I quote from this case ruling itself, the city council itself has subpoena power, and that power is inherent in and tied to the power of legislate. City council retains its own power to issue subpoena and may be motivated to exercise that power. You have the ability and the responsibility to create a community-led review board, one empowered to oversee the police, issue subpoenas, and hold the department accountable. Imagine a review board staffed by your colleagues, armed with your legislative authority, working alongside you to ensure justice and transparency. This isn't just possible, it's necessary. Council, our community is watching. We're tired of broken trust, systematic failures, and leaders who fail to act. Now is the time for your courage, for your accountability, and for a Trenton Police Department that serves and respects all its residents. Thank you.
Cordelia Staton.
Cordelia Staton, 310 Gardner Avenue. As a former elected council person, I am deeply concerned about the current state of policing in our community, particularly in light of the recent DOJ report. When I reflect on the history of our efforts to bring accountability and reform to the police department, I am reminded of how much progress we made, but also how much work remains to be done. In 1999, as president of the Trenton Council of Civic Associations, I organized the Yes We Can Residents Coalition in response to the police department's systemic failures, poor response times, overtime abuse, promotion practices, excessive force, and a lack of community trust. We demanded action, and together we succeeded under the leadership of Mayor Douglas H. Palmer to restructure the city's public safety department, creating civilian oversight and establishing the Citizens Police Advisory Councils, better known as CPACs. These groups are assigned to each ward, and they meet monthly to this day. These were critical steps in ensuring that the police department was accountable to the people it was meant to serve. Now, after all these years, it is disheartening to see that many of the same issues persist. Our community deserves a police force that is transparent, accountable, well-trained, and responsive to its needs. We can't afford to return to a time when the voices of residents were ignored and worse, silenced. As a former council person, I feel it is crucial for the current city leaders, both legislative and administrative, to take immediate and meaningful action to restore the public trust in our police force. The findings in the DOJ report are a wake-up call, and we must act swiftly to address the issues at hand. We need leadership that holds the police accountable and ensures they operate with the integrity and respect this Trenton community deserves. If the current leadership is unable to bring about meaningful change, then it is time to seek new leadership. It is essential that the community remains engaged and continues to push for the reforms necessary to ensure that law enforcement serves all the people equitably and responsibly. Together, we can make real change and build a police force that reflects the values of fairness, justice, and respect for all. It is imperative that the police department is imperative that the police department is well-trained and prepared to serve people. The police department, their budget is almost 80% of the city's budget. We spend a lot of money on the police department. We really do. And it's true. It's not everybody, but there are some. And they are so deeply rooted in this thing. I'm talking from 1999. I don't know where you guys were at that time. That's a long time ago. We were in the streets. It was just crazy. We had to have a special election. It was just a mess in this town. The neighborhoods that suffered with poor response times, and police would showed no confidentiality when we were when people would give them tips or whatnot on crimes and things. It was just a complete mess. I'm not even gonna get into it because I don't want that thing to go off on me, but I am telling you, in all seriousness, something needs to be done and by all means necessary. If you need to step up and do, make some hard decisions along with the mayor, you're gonna have to do it because that's what that's what it's all about, right? Making tough decisions. Doesn't have to always be popular, but it definitely has to be right. Thank you.
Jason Woodhead.
Good evening, council. Thank you for allowing us to speak. We're the designated representatives of the Trenton Superior Officers Association, the SOA. It's comprised of the supervising ranks, which consists of the sergeants, lieutenants, and captains of the Trenton Police Department. My name is Jason Woodhead. I'm the president of the association, and I'm accompanied by the association vice presidents Miguel Acosta and Bethesda Stokes. The members of the SOA are dedicated to improving the Trenton Police Department through our commitment to support efforts for meaningful reform and accountability. While we respect the concerns raised by the DOJ, it is essential that our approach to reform is fair, balanced, and guided by data. We would like to schedule an open forum to address any concerns or questions that you may have. We stand here before the public and council members. The challenges facing the Trenton Police Department are serious, but they're not insurmountable. First, we must address staffing shortages to ensure the department can meet the demands of our community. Second, we must hold external entities such as the DCA accountable for decisions that undermine departmental efficiency and supervision. And third, we must pursue reform through collaborative, data-driven solutions that balance public safety, officer morale, and fiscal responsibility. Superior Officers Association remains fully committed to working with the council, administration, and the public to implement these reforms and achieve our shared goal of a safer and stronger Trenton. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me. Faranaz Shamim.
Hi, my name is Farana Shamim. I live at 49 Myrtle Ave, and I'm here with the Great Trenton DSA. I just want to start off by saying working at St. Francis Medical Center, especially during the outbreak of COVID-19, has instilled in me a shakable sense of duty. Duty to protect, to serve, to be versatile and think on your feet, to be charitable, and to not see one life as more valuable than another. No guns involved, no form of strangulation, no need for violence. On April 3rd, just 1 month before George Floyd's murder that would shock the nation and create waves internationally, I became a witness to the same exact crime carried out by Trenton Public Department. To watch someone clearly having a mental health episode, literally screaming for help, not harming anyone, and begging for his life as police officers tackle him is something that still haunts me now. I could only manage to take a picture at the moment. It did not even register to me that his immobilized body equaled death by homicide. Stephen Dolchamore should still be alive. He was instead killed by Trenton PD on hospital property. No amount of sensitivity training can end the systemic injustice that is caused by our police officers who run the streets with no accountability, contributing to for-profit prisons that capitalize on modern-day slavery. There is no rehabilitation, no justice to be found here. We do not want another George Floyd or Stephen Dolchamore. Many Trentonians are not strangers to trauma. Many are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling, impoverished, battling addiction and mental health issues. We must treat them with dignity and compassion. We must replace armed police officers with mental health professionals who can actually tend to the sensitive needs of our community. I have worked with my fellow healthcare workers to de-escalate risky situations that create an immediate solution that would protect the welfare of all. This is something that our armed police officers are simply not equipped to provide. The nature of their presence alone creates distrust and extreme power imbalance. I urge you all to consider social workers, crisis response teams, and caregivers in helping professions or emergency services to ensure our public safety. The city of Trenton would do greater justice to its people by allocating funds not for the expansion of the Trenton Police Department or sensitivity trainings under the guise of improving the department, but instead to creating better resources for our community in a way that actually improves our day-to-day lives. Less work to end police brutality by reducing police funding in the first place. And instead, let's invest in the needs of Trentonians to keep them safe and content. We can accomplish this by prioritizing the right to affordable housing, affordable health care, better funding for our community resources such as schools, libraries, museums, and recreational facilities. Let us change the narrative to move away from violence and towards collective liberation.
Victor Irizarry.
Victor Irizarry, 19 Moreland Avenue, Trenton, New Jersey. The first thing I'd like to say is before you have police reform, you need social reform. Officers can't have but so much training. And I realize once you get with so much training, you're, in other words, looked down upon as the enemy. Then you need to realize that sometimes when it's an actual report that some officers hate their jobs. And I say some of them need to be more or less truck drivers, pizza delivery persons than officers. There's a study that I learned at Mercer County Community College in social criminal justice that some officers, when 3 years or after 3 years, they started hating the same people of their own race. And therefore, to flex and chastise that people, they take it out on everyone. And then there's a gathering of those, a congregation of those who feel that way, like the so-called people that make the paper, the cowboys and so forth. All right. So again, I say, before this, along with police reform, we need social reform, which means what? If they need training, then the people on the streets, the drug dealers, the gangsters, the prostitutes, the pimps, they need training too. How to conduct themselves in public, so therefore they don't stand out so much in front of people's homes and making our communities look bad to the point where police doesn't have to respond. And there's another, along with that study, that says that there are two professions that have the most highest alcoholism rate, and that's the priest, Catholic priests, and police officers. All right, so both stay drunk doing God's work. I say that law enforcement, you can't separate law enforcement from religion. Law enforcement and religion go together. To me, and as I studied in criminal justice also, that's the war of good and evil between so-called God and the devil. It was actually between the tribe of Shabazz, the so-called Africans now, their name, they were the tribe of Shabazz, the so-called Africans in Africa. And then the other part, the Lucifer, is a group of people, Black Europeans, that came on the planet Earth about 9,000 years ago. So they clash. So now when you say law enforcement, then you're saying, when you're talking about law enforcement, you're talking about war of good and evil. All right, okay, that's all over planet Earth. A while ago, someone said that this problem that we have in Trenton is nationwide. So therefore, it starts with politics from the attorney, U.S. Attorney General and the president, all the way down to the governor, to the mayor and the chief of police. So we can't do but so much unless he needs to be replaced with who? In America, if this problem is from the east to the west, north to the south, where you gonna get someone qualified enough to not only give us 50%, give us 100%. Not only 65%, give us 75%. All right? First of all, think about that. All right, and then they'll leave. And on top of that, then if that problem is from east to the west, then it's coming from top down. So how is anyone going to get 100% satisfaction and everyone's content? Now, I noticed that we are in an era of percentages that if 99% of the people are satisfied, that 1%, if that 1% is not satisfied, that doesn't matter. Then that falls as the underclass, no one cares about. But they're humans too. And they're the ones that you see at these areas, soup lines and social services looking for help. They get their help, go back into the streets. There's nothing there for them because nothing has been upgraded so they can continue. If they're going to be criminals, good criminals that don't get caught. So therefore, you don't need the police coming around to handle petty crimes. And therefore, those officers who are not happy with their jobs.
Sir, that
thank
is your
you.
time.
Okay.
Thank you. Marwa Kershid, did I get that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Marwa Khurshid. I live at 32 Joe DiMaggio Drive. I want to speak on behalf of another Trenton resident named Taylor Davis. She lives at 32 Elmhurst Avenue. We're both members of Greater Trenton DSA. This is her statement. As a Trenton resident for 8 years, I am deeply frustrated and concerned with the Trenton Police Department's negligence, particularly in providing timely court dates. My own unresolved court issues are a direct result of this lack of competence, which raises serious questions about accountability and efficiency. This issue leads to unknown warrants and arrests for people that are unknowingly a victim of their actions. This issue is compounded by the fact that the Division of Justice has already acknowledged that the Trenton Police Department's history of discriminatory practices and the significant racial tensions within the department. These systematic issues undermine trust in law enforcement and disproportionately affect residents of color, further straining our community. Recently, I learned that Trenton plans to allocate more funds to hire new police officers, even waiving the requirement for a written test. While public safety is critical, ensuring that officers are properly trained, qualified, and free from bias should be top priority. Hiring unqualified officers without addressing the department's systemic issues will only perpetuate existing problems. Rather than focusing solely on expanding the police force, these funds could better be invested in addressing the root causes of crime and community challenges. Expanding access to mental health advocacy, hiring social workers, and increasing support for other public servants could create lasting positive change and help rebuild trust between residents and the systems meant to serve us. Thank you.
Joe Marchica.
All right, take two. So. My name is Joe Marchica, again, Greater Trenton DSA, and I'll get straight to the point. 10 Sheffield Road. The Department of Justice report confirmed what a lot of folks in and around Trenton already knew, is that the Trenton Police Department has a habit and a preponderance of brutal and violent behavior towards the residents of Trenton and towards folks who were coming from out of town and who were in the area. What comes to the forefront of my mind, as Nas had mentioned, was Stephen Dulcimore, as well as the police murder of Joseph R. and the maiming and paralyzation of Judge Juan Henderson when he was sitting in a parked car in 2022 and was shot by plainclothes police officers. Otherwise, we know what they are. They're jump out boys, right? So what I want to pose to this council is just talk a little bit about why this keeps happening and has kept happening, not just in Trenton, but around the entire country. 2023 was the deadliest year on record for police killings since 2013. Think about that. We had George Floyd in 2020, right? There's all these uprisings. There's all of this momentum to try to do better with public safety. What went wrong? And in short, all of that energy was snuffed out and diverted towards a reform approach that was used as an excuse to funnel money to police departments that didn't fundamentally change how they interact with our communities. Because the core of policing as an institution is historically based in violence and violent white supremacy. It started out as slave patrols. It started out as violent union busting. And that core, the culture at the core of it is still there. So you can have good people who go into a police department and try to do the right thing and improve things. But it becomes an us against the world mentality. And they're forced to cape for bastards, excuse my French. So I don't see how feasibly we can reform an institution like this where the purpose of the institution is not to provide real public safety. And what this city needs, what this community needs, is real public safety that actually prioritizes its residents and their health and their well-being. You guys already have the model for crisis response in the city. It just needs to be scaled up. You have community street teams. These are nonviolent responders that get funding to go and prevent violence from happening and be in the community to de-escalate problematic situations. This is a model built on a foundation that's been around since 1988 with the Cahoots model in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon. They have never had any of their personnel in this program hurt or killed over the entire existence. That's over 3 decades. And they've saved the city of Eugene, Oregon about $2.2 million a year. This is with a small footprint. This is with about 3 to 8% of their calls that they get going diverted to police. There's another estimate, I think it's 20% of the calls that now go into their public safety call reception area. I forget the proper name, but the model's there. It's here in Trenton. You guys have it. Just fund it. Expand funding for that. We don't need a fifth of Trenton city budget going to police that don't make us safer. The core of the institution does not make people safe. We need to reduce the role of police in public safety because we are operating with a public safety toolbox that's full of hammers and that's it. And when you have a toolbox that's full of hammers, every single Trentonian looks like a damn nail. We need to put a diverse set of tools in that toolbox, and we need to use them for the appropriate situation. You want public safety experts deployed for the situations that they are best suited for. You want mental health professionals, you want social workers, you want de-escalation experts. We can't train any profession to do all of these things. It's too many different things. You would be in training all the time and you still wouldn't have all the expertise. You still wouldn't have all the experience. So we're putting an unfair burden on an institution that's not meant to do any of the things we're telling them they need to do. The slogan's supposed to be protect and serve, but I think the evidence is pretty clear at this point that this approach to public safety is backwards and has failed. This approach to public safety in Trenton has failed. We need a different approach that's evidence-based, that's holistic, and actually prioritizes the well-being of the people in the city. And I'll say it again, you have the model. You don't need to overthink this. Don't invest in training that is a dead-end approach, that is an excuse to suck away money, because we'll be back here in a year, we'll be back here in 2 years, we'll be back here in 6 months. I don't know when it'll be, but it'll happen. And things won't be better. There will be another report. There will be another incident. There will be another police killing. And everyone will wonder, why didn't Trenton City Council? A new approach. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
I'm sorry. We just remind everybody, and thank you everyone for your comments thus far, that when you come up, we want to know where you're from, not just the name of the organization that you represent. So we need to know everybody's address when they come forward to speak, right? Thank you.
Stuart Alterman.
Good evening, Council President, Madam President, members of council. Mr. Bridges, how are you? Mr. Mayor. I'm Stuart Alterman, and I represent PBA Local 11A, the Superior Officers Association. I've had the privilege of representing the PBA here in Trenton since 1998 in various matters. I've heard a lot of discussion today. I've heard a lot of discussion tonight about the DOJ report. I've read it. I disagree with points. I agree with certain points. I'm disappointed in certain points. It's an unsigned, unauthored document. It's not even dated. It's unfortunate. But I think it's important for you all to know that we as the PBA have come to the city and have come, more importantly, to the DCA, to the Division of Community Affairs, because we are all hostage to the Division of Community Affairs who wields the purse, strings in this city and cities like Trenton. And Trenton needs money. Money will fix a lot of the problems in the police department. And money will fix a lot of the problems here in the city. Trenton does not get its fair share of the dollars that are spent around the state. Very importantly, is the fact that the police department in particular is underfunded, under-budgeted, understaffed, undertrained, and undersupervised. We acknowledge that. We acknowledge that our training has been abysmal for several years, not because of a lack of talent, not because of a lack of interest or enthusiasm, but because of a lack of money, because Trenton, we're in Trenton, it makes me crazy to think that we're sitting here in the capital of the state and they can't figure out how to spend money in this city when they come here and they pass bills on nonsense and things that don't matter when things that matter here have yet to be funded. Now let's talk about training for a moment. Training teaches police officers how to act, how to conduct themselves, how to go about their jobs. Madam Councilperson, I heard exactly what you said. I think you're Ms. Edwards. Training is extremely important. Training will allow police officers to conduct themselves in a professional manner up to the legitimate standards of the citizenry, of council, of the mayor, and amongst their peers. Very importantly, without the money for proper training, it doesn't happen. Trenton, the police department also suffers from a lack of equipment, from a lack of technology, from a lack of 2024 cyber technology. Why is that? How does that happen? It happens because the state of New Jersey, the DCA, underfunds and doesn't fund this city and the departments in the city. That's the problem. So while we can all point the fingers at one another, I can say the police are great, you can say the police are not so great, we all really do have to come together. We have to come together and we have to find a pathway to convince those individuals down the street to start spending money here in order to improve the situation, particularly because we're all talking about the police department and the police department. Public safety is the #1 thing that government has to perform. Marbury versus Madison specifically states there's 2 things that government provides. 1, public safety. 2, education. Without public safety, you can't have a country. Without education, you can't have a country. The 2 of them together, adequately funded and supported, makes a country and makes us all together. And we come in as one, not different people. I think we all want the same thing here. We want safety, we want integrity, we want honesty, we want transparency. And with that, Madam Council President, I ask you to assist us in going to the... Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, what town are you from?
Marlton.
Marlton.
Thank you.
Mr. Naeem Baker.
I'm sorry, so we have to have order in the room, ma'am. I understand that we're passionate about this, but we need order in the room. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Soror.
Yenin Baker. I'm representing Visionary Philanthropy Group, Inc., and I'm also representing the NAACP. I'm the president. I'm the chairman of the Trenton Prison Branch of the NAACP. First of all,
Sir,
I
could I
want
just have your address? I'm sorry.
47 Clag Avenue.
Thank you.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank the whole council members. Great evening to everyone, and also gentlemen here in front of me. So today I would like to begin with, stating that I read the whole 45-page DOJ report. I used to be in the streets, right? I came into the streets 1993, and you know, there was a system that the police had, right? And that was they would jump out, you know, on all the drug dealers, you know, unconstitutionally. And I endured, you know, a lot of brutal beatings. For example, if I was selling drugs and I got caught, before I got caught, sometimes I would run, and, you know, they would chase me down and beat me up, right? So this was an ongoing thing. Don't get me wrong, if we sold drugs, we were wrong. However, you know, when we ran and we got caught, no questions asked, we were, you know, getting beat with flashlights, whatever it was. So to get to my point, you know, we thought it was normal. You know, me and my comrades that were in the streets, we thought it was normal to, you know, get beat by the police when, you know, they would catch us, right? So fast forward now that I'm on the other side of the law and I'm a law-abiding citizen now, you know, I'm conscious, I'm no longer ignorant. I'm like, wow, you know, we were being violated. Yes, we were wrong for selling drugs, but, you know, there was no reason to beat us. So to elaborate on the 45-page report, you know, there were some things that stuck out with me. In the streets, let's say about 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, the Trenton was flooded with the gang movement, right? And being in the streets, there was a lot of ignorance and violence, killings going on. So I used to, you know, go to a lot of the gangsters that was in control, right? And you know, talk to them about the robberies, the violence and things like that that were going on under their control. And a lot of them, you know, would say, you know, can you control your gang members or whatever the case may be? And a lot of them wouldn't want to hear what I said. So to get to my point, they would, you know, co-sign everything. So that 45-page report, it wasn't surprising to me, first and foremost, right? It wasn't surprising to me, but what I'm saying is they co-signed a lot, the gangsters in the streets, right? And in that, one of the key factors in that 45-page report was that the sergeants, you know, the lieutenants and the other higher ups, they said in that report that they would read the report and just sign off on it. And that was very, you know, touching to me because they didn't reprimand the officers or anything like that for the wrongdoings that they did. Basically, and that stood out to me. And that was the same thing that was going on in the streets. So yes, the streets, you know, it was organized illegal crime, but reading that report, if the, you know, the officers, the lieutenants and whoever, you know, co-signed those wrongdoings, then, you know, that's wrong. So overall, to end my point, you know, we need accountability. You know, people got killed. So we need people to be accountable, and you know, leadership needs to be accountable. And my point is, you know, last thing I want to say is we need accountability, just like everyone else. Myself was accountable for my wrongdoings.
Ralph Colon.
Hello, my name is Ralph. I live in Hamilton, 265 Watson Avenue, Hamilton Township, New Jersey. It's a privilege to speak in front of you, council. I am a proud native of Trenton. I'll say it again. I'm a proud native of Trenton. And I want to thank all the police officers that do put themselves on the line on a daily basis. I have experienced police injustice. I have experienced unconstitutional practices in the past. And I want to come to Trenton. I want to feel safe. We're already hampered by crime in Trenton. I want to be able to trust the police in Trenton. The city of Trenton is hurting. lawsuits hamper the city, that money paid out could be used to better revitalize the city. The unconstitutional problems are an issue. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how many times I've been wrong profiled. The police work for the community. Why is it that I often feel that they serve us while protecting themselves at times? We definitely need a board to oversee these constitutional issues and problems that are arising and continue to happen around the city. Thank you. I am also a representative of DCA. Thank you.
That's all of them. Madam President, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming forward and speaking tonight, and giving us your feedback. Certainly, we've taken it and we will digest it and meet about it. Now we'll hear from our mayor, Mayor Reed Gusiora, with his response about the DOJ report.
Thank you, Council President, and I acknowledge our great former Mayor Douglas Palmer. The gentleman who spoke before, as well as Councilwoman Staton, acknowledged that this problem has been around. It didn't happen yesterday, didn't happen under Steve Wilson's watch, didn't happen under my administration or anyone else's administration. So I got to acknowledge the US Justice Department report, and the findings are indeed troubling. It's important to acknowledge that the city has fully cooperated with the investigation. I met with the US Attorney from New Jersey on a number of occasions. Their team has come to City Hall. I've gone to the US Justice Department's offices myself. And I want to express our gratitude to their work and to their resources. We invited them into the city. I know they wanted to come, but we opened the doors. We fully cooperated with the investigation. The behavior cited in the report is unacceptable, and we must and we will do better. Any one of the instances in the violation of public trust and constitutional rights, we must do better. As a city, we are committed to holding our officers accountable, ensuring that these issues are addressed, and making necessary changes to protect the rights and safety of all Trenton residents. But I also want to say that during this last week, I walked down the streets of Chestnut, Randall, Jersey, Home, and I talked with the residents, and they would pull me out on the porch and they would say, look at this street. And invariably they'd say, where are the police? They'd also say, there's a drug dealer down the street. When are you going to get rid of them? My neighbor is throwing garbage over the porch. They're speeding cars down our street. When are you going to put speed bumps? Where's the patrols? So we have to balance things. There is a need for police in this city. Today, there was a shooting on Maple Avenue. And I said, that's in a residential neighborhood, usually quiet, but there was a shooting today. Somebody got shot. Somebody's in the hospital in critical condition. Where are the police? And again, there's no excuse for violating persons' constitutional rights, but they are a necessary entity in this city. And let's talk about Steve Wilson. Again, these problems didn't start under Steve Wilson. But what Steve Wilson did was disband the two units that were mentioned in this report. He also was the one who shepherded the street teams and merged them with the police department. He also initiated Arrive Together so that there is mental health counseling that will arrive with the police. These are necessary reforms. We have a lot of work to do with IA, but he was the one who also started with reconstituting the IA, making sure that they did the reports right, making sure they keep the data, and those changes will still continue. But the two the three very major recommendations, one is IA, is training. Right now, police officers receive internet training. And we all know you look at a desk, if you take a class, you could leave and then come back and then sign out that you've watched the video. We need in-person training. And to reinforce that, and Steve Wilson is committed to making that happen. It is right that we need the resources. DCA gave Camden Police all the resources they need. They gave Atlantic City all the resources they need. They need to give resources to the capital city. And supervision. You can't just have patrols just going out with not the sergeants coming out for field supervision. You have to have the captains go out there. You have to have the lieutenants go out there. And we're committing to making these changes. So again, these problems didn't happen overnight, but we're the ones who are committed to making the changes. We will be taking part with DOJ to have community meetings. We will have the discussion, as Councilwoman Edwards and I know Councilwoman Feliciano has spoke about, having a citizens review board. You just don't create one, but you have to give that resources as well. You need subpoena power, you need staffing, you need interviews of witnesses. So that's going to take resources. So we're going to have to work together for that. But I will disagree that there has been no impact by Director Wilson. A couple of years ago, he's only been here for almost 3 years. A couple of years ago, we had 40 homicides. So far up to today, we've had 18. So the homicides have declined down 55% since 2020. So we have to be doing something right. And the public demands that the police go out there. And you know, they say there's too many guns out on the street. This year, we confiscated 215 guns. And if we didn't have the police to confiscate them, we can only imagine what would have happened with those guns. So when we go down the street, we want to ensure that our streets are safe, that there's things to do for their kids, that seniors can feel safe to walk to the store, that people can sit on their porch and not have to worry about their safety. We have to take this realistically. We are taking it seriously. It is deeply troubling, the instances that were cited in the report. We have to do better. But in order to do that, we have to make sure that IA, the Internal Affairs Unit, is doing their job, that there is in-person training for the police officers so that they protect the constitutional rights as well as enforce the laws. And we need the supervision out on the streets. So I'm going to turn this over, if I may, to Director Wilson to address the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, Council. Steve Wilson, Police Director. First off, I just want everybody to note I do take this DOJ report very seriously. That's first and foremost. Second, I'd like everyone to know that when this DOJ investigation happened, I immediately started making changes, and I had been making changes since before the DOJ was even came to the city of Trenton. So I'd like to thank them for the report. It was very eye-opening. We had already enacted a number of the DOJ recommendations, and we'll continue to do so, just like the mayor said. They pointed out a lot of procedural and training deficiencies. One of the first things I did was go from an internal affairs unit, and I created the Internal Affairs Bureau, consisting of professional standards, human resources, and training, as well as the internal affairs function. Now, the benefits of creating this bureau was to better address citizen complaints, more accountability for supervisors and officers. Also put more sergeants were transferred into the Internal Affairs Bureau, so we wouldn't have the same rank investigating the officers. Rather, we would have a supervisor investigating them. It's my intention to completely put sergeants in there to get rid of all the detectives, but it's a manpower issue. Our use of force policy has already been revised for consistency with the New Jersey General's Office use of force policy. Policies governing BWC, which is our body-worn camera, and use of force will be further revised based on the DOJ report and suggestions. These changes will make immediate supervisors more accountable for the actions of the officers under their command. The Internal Affairs Bureau now reviews all use of force reports and body-worn cameras. This was a revision already instituted prior to the report. The BWC policy will indicate progressive discipline for failure to comply and will indicate progressive discipline for supervisors failing to supervise. I want to especially highlight our citizen complaint process. We are revising and updating the TPD website to make the complaint process more easily accessible and user-friendly. This is also something I did before the DOJ report. The complaint process is available in 11 different languages online on trentonpolice.com. We have and will continue to remind the public of the citizen complaint process at all community meetings. And if you've been there, you know that I've done that. And you can always, I want to remind everybody, submit complaints anonymously. Our training aspect. Arrest, search, and seizure training was instituted with the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office and will continue. We are presently considering potential resources to conduct additional training for de-escalation coupled with use of force training. More importantly, we will put a greater emphasis on supervisor responsibility and accountability to stimulate greater oversight and guidance for our officers on the street. As far as community engagement, I regularly engage with the public by attending community meetings and establishing relationship with clergy and as many community members as I can. Our community affairs unit is more highly engaged than it has been in past years when I was here as an officer. One of the community groups that the mayor forgot to mention was Recovery Advocates. And yes, that occurred under me, as well as the Trenton Community Street Teams, and arrived together because I realized the importance of these groups. And I did that when I first got here and will continue to do so and continue to lobby for the funding for our Trenton Community Street Teams. It is very important that the police department establish those relationships, and I recognize that a long time ago. The people of Trenton deserve to be safe, but they also need to know that the police protecting them are doing that important and often dangerous work while respecting their constitutional rights. I and the leadership of TPD are committed to making the department one that the capital city deserves. Working with the DOJ, the New Jersey Attorney General, other stakeholders, including community groups within the city, we will strive to make the changes needed to strike the balance the mayor indicated. Some of my proposed measures to address the DOJ report. Internal Affairs shall make every effort to interview the complainant, particularly using the contact provided. If the complainant fails to follow up, Internal Affairs must document the reasons for non-contact if available. In addition to mail notifications, Internal Affairs should attempt to contact the complainant through secondary means. If the complainant is unavailable or unwilling to cooperate, Internal Affairs must proceed with an independent investigation using other witnesses, including those identified in the report, or accompanying officers to assess the validity of the complaint. TPD shall ensure all complaints are received and reviewed. Any language that may have discouraged the complaint procedure will be removed. Internal Affairs shall conduct a comprehensive review of all complaints and classify those complaints in accordance with the most accurate and complete categorization. Trenton Police Department shall provide annual in-person training, particularly with patrol officers or others who primarily deal with the public, make every effort with the city administration utilizing budgetary or grant funding to conduct such training in person. Trenton Police Department shall update its internal affairs investigation policies to ensure full compliance with Attorney General guidelines. The updated policy should include clear procedures for handling investigations and reporting of complaints. Annual performance evaluations for all superior officers must be conducted for the officers and supervisors within their ranks. The evaluation should include written or oral reviews, fully documented, outlining areas of performance, including strengths and areas of improvement and any misconduct. Superior officers above the rank of sergeant will be required to conduct on-scene supervision whenever possible and provide oversight of their field units on a regular basis. This supervision must be documented. Field sergeants are expected to conduct daily field investigations and ensure compliance with departmental policies. Supervisors shall identify and address violations of the body-worn camera policy. Officers found to be in violation will face a disciplinary action. Supervisors who fail to address known violations will also face disciplinary action. This is also something that has been going on. Internal Affairs will continue to maintain records on all uses of force and take steps to identify and address instances of non-reporting. All uses of force should be documented accurately and reviewed regularly to ensure compliance with department policies. All officers on every level are expected to act in compliance with the laws of the state of New Jersey, the New Jersey Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and the directives and guidelines of the Attorney General in order to safeguard the rights of our residents. Trenton Police Department and Internal Affairs shall provide regular updates on internal affairs investigations and outcomes, included but not limited to hosting community meetings to discuss police policies and practices. This is to help foster public trust and provide opportunities for residents to voice concerns directly to police leadership. To enhance training and supervision, Trenton Police Department shall institute a program to mentor new officers or those struggling with performance issues. Such mentorship programs are designed to support ongoing professional development and improve officer performance on the street. I want to comment on that. I created a new field training officer program here because I saw that the lack of training for new officers, that was also done prior to DOJ coming here. I saw that deficiency and I addressed it. Trenton Police Department must implement regular audits or data analysis on misconduct complaints, use of force, traffic stops, and other policing metrics. By analyzing trends and patterns, the department can proactively address issues and ensure continuous improvement in service and delivery. That is something that's also directed by the Attorney General. Thank you.
On your call, Madam President.
So at this time, do any council members have any questions for the mayor or for the police director before we close out?
Madam President,
Yes, Councilwoman Edwards.
I do have questions for the mayor.
Okay.
Forgive me. My computer locked on me. Okay. But first of all, I want to say thank you for coming to council to address us in the public in regards to the DOJ report.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. As you know, this was something pertinent to the community to hear from you, so I respect you for that. I want to say or ask on behalf of several people that I had spoke with, what mechanisms are in place to hold the police director accountable for this pattern of misconduct? I hear and I do understand that a lot of these issues definitely existed long before he became director and yourself as mayor as well. But there were a lot of things that happened under his leadership that have gone, how can I say, without any accountability. We have had several police murders and injuries, excessive force, and things like that. But I don't see any type of accountability. We need more training and things like that. And I do agree we need training. I'm like one of the #1 people that came in here from day one focused on training because we need it. But it's not enough, echoing the sentiments of Councilwoman Figueroa Kattenberg. It's not enough. And we do need those other partnerships with the mental health services and things like that, especially given the guy that was murdered by police officers. And that brings me to my point where those officers, they were not held accountable for this. They were still here. Some of them are still here to this day. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
I don't think he's there anymore. And we referred the matter to the Attorney General, the New Jersey Attorney General, who's investigated that incident. So that is with the Attorney General's office. We can't interfere with their investigation. And unfortunately, investigations by the Attorney General office can take years, but it has been referred to them. And that was one of the reasons why we brought on Arrive Together, where mental health counselors are going to come whether it's domestic violence or whether it's with a mental patient. And it's unexcusable what ultimately happened. But at the time when the officer was confronted with someone who was in the crisis center and then left and went in the parking lot, the thought process, and I'm not excusing his behavior, but the thought process is that he was going to run into the street and be in danger to himself or others. But right now, we have instituted under Steve Wilson's leadership, Arrive Together, where we're correcting that, where when there is a mental health crisis, a mental health counselor should arrive with the police. And he's had discussions with Capitol Health to have that put in place.
Council, if I could expand on that response in terms of just the process, not the specifics of specific acts. Whenever a use of force comes to the law department's attention that is in question, we review it. That is sent with 100% accuracy to the prosecutor's office for them to do an investigation. So anytime there is a complaint that's brought to my attention, the law department's attention about that, it is referred to the prosecutor's office. The case that you're talking about was referred to the prosecutor's office, as well as other matters that have come to the law department's attention. We wait for them to make their decision. When it comes back, the answer will be they're either going to pursue charges or to handle it administratively. If it comes back with that type of handle it administratively, it is then sent back to IA for them to initiate the disciplinary process, whereby there's a hearing before a hearing officer. The administration, the police will put on their respective cases, the officer will put on their defenses, the hearing officer will make a recommendation. It's an independent law firm hearing officer, not someone internal. The attorney will make a recommendation of discipline. That discipline is either accepted or revised by the administration. 99% of the time it's accepted in its totality, at which point in time, if any party is not happy with the recommendation and adoption of that discipline, they then have the ability to appeal that to the Office of Administrative Law, where there's a de novo trial, and an administrative law judge will make a determination with respect to the amount of discipline, if at all. That's the process for investigating that. With respect to, recourse for any director, including the police director, as you know, there's the Rice provision. You have the ability and you have an investigatory power to issue someone a Rice notice, bring them before this body, ask them questions you would like to have answered, make your own evaluation as to the accuracy and the sufficiency of that answer. And that's part of this body's investigatory capacity. So that's I think, your answer for both questions.
I appreciate that, Director. Thank you. And as a council member, I definitely want to do that. I would love to Rice the police director and dive deeper into the issues of the police department, particularly with internal affairs department and the corruption that we have been experiencing there. There's too much nepotism. There's too much conflict of interest. There's relationships that go deep with the police director, and I don't feel like they're giving adequate how can I say, recommendations of just accountability for the things that are happening. There has been indecent exposure and police officers are still employed. They have not been terminated. They've given slaps on the wrist, but the people that they are violating, the people they work with, they still have to work with this person, these people.
You're taking the right course, and I think that you should have that lengthy discussion. And when the NAACP talked about you had the subpoena power, you should have those executive sessions where you can look at the reports and make that judgment for yourself.
Absolutely. I think this police department needs to be cleaned up, and I think that there needs to be a firmer hand from our director on our police officers, on all of the incidents that are happening internally as well as to our residents. And there's a lot going on that is being swept under the rug. And I'm not sure if you're aware of a lot of these things. I know a lot of our police officers, well, I'm not going to say a lot, but many of our police officers are scared of retaliation. We're scared to report these things. And the ones that have reported wrongdoings from other officers have been retaliated against. They have been moved to other units. They have been moved to other shifts that do not coincide with their livelihoods, with their children, with their spouses, with themselves. And that is unfair for issues to go unresolved. To just move someone to another unit or to another shift does not resolve the problem. The problem is still there. And that's where my concern is, because if morale is low in our police department, then our people are not safe. So I personally need answers from our police department, our police director. With all due respect, Mayor, I feel like he needs to be stronger, and he has not exemplified strength.
I also want to, that is also being addressed. We are now, the majority of the police force is minority makeup. And we elevated the first 2 African females to be lieutenants. And I think when I first started, the majority of the hierarchy was white. That is no longer the case. And that, again, is also due to Director Wilson's involvement.
Okay, I don't have any further questions.
Council Vice President.
Good evening, Mayor. A couple of things I just wanted to address really quickly. One, thank you for acknowledging, walking the beat and seeing, the conditions, deplorable conditions of our neighborhoods. As we know, that adds to the attitude, the culture of our residents and our police officers, and how we react to law enforcement, how we react to anything that is ordinance related or law abiding, because we feel like our rights are being violated on a daily basis because we don't get the quality of life that we deserve here in the city of Trenton. So, when we're faced with police officers trying to correct actions, we're also wondering, well, what about my rights over here as a taxpaying citizen or as a resident and things of that nature? So we need to tighten that up. So I appreciate you acknowledging that. And that is something that me as a councilwoman is constantly trying to hold directors of departments accountable for their roles in for multiple departments throughout the city. I want to just shift gears, though. I don't want to steer clear from the police brutality and the deaths and things of that nature. As we know, that's prevalent. That's an issue that needs to be addressed. Again, that's a nationwide issue as well as locally, and it needs to be stopped. But I also want to kind of talk about the practicality when we're talking about so many instances of police brutality, of inappropriate policing throughout the city. We can't ignore the cost to the city. We need to start talking about what this is going to cost us in lawsuits, what this is costing us in having officers suspended with pay during investigations, what it costs us in having officers suspended without pay during investigations. Clearly, we don't have the funds in the city of Trenton for that, and we need to start tightening up our shift to know that these things just cannot continue, because when we have an officer, even if they're suspended without pay, that is a spot that is not open for policing in the city of Trenton. That is an officer not on the beat, an officer not able to walk the beat, because we are still paying for not paying that officer. We're not filling that position.
We're about 50 officers down where we need to be. So I don't disagree that if we take a police officer off the beat, that's even more that we're down. We do have to follow civil service rules. We do have to follow union grievance procedures. So it's more complicated than we could just make a decision right off the bat. But and I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is part of the reason why it's critical that we have in-person training, so that it's reinforced to the officers to adhere to constitutional rights of the citizens, but also fulfill their duty to serve and protect the public.
Yeah, respectfully, Mayor, that comment was not geared towards filling those positions right away with civil service. It was more so, this is taking away from our safety in our city and what we're here to do. And that's why we have to nip these things in the bud, so we don't have all these issues constantly where we have officers out for investigations. And then, as Councilman Edwards said, it's like a slap on the wrist and they're just back on the force as if nothing happened. And now they're almost in a more retaliatory mentality once they go back on the beat, because now they've been slapped on the wrist for something and they got away with it, and now they're back on that beat. So, and really quick before you answer that, and I just want to also address, have we thought about what this is going to cost us? This DOJ report that came out, this investigation, what is it going to cost this city? Because I would assume a lot of cases of police brutality are going to be reopened. The lawyers are going to have a field day reopening cases that were settled or closed or what have you, because of this DOJ investigation. And what preparations are we taking for that?
Well, we're working with the law department to see what their statute of limitations on reopening cases, and we'd have to look to see what cases are involved. But we're doing that as well. The cost of one homicide, it's been estimated to cost the community between $9 and $17 million. So the loss of life and the loss of economic benefits and the degradation of the community, the loss of property values, the fact that homeowners insurance goes up. So we also have to balance. Not only do we have to protect constitutional rights, but we have to protect the neighborhoods. The gentleman that said, or we don't have a community unless we have public safety. But we also have to have the public's trust and cooperation, because they're critical to helping us solve crimes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Williams. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so after Councilwoman Williams, then it'll be Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you very much, Council President. Thank you, Mayor. Also, thank you, Director Wilson, for speaking to us tonight. I know you're both well aware of the concerns many folks have in the city regarding what's in the report and their own lifetime experiences. So I have a few questions. The first one's for the mayor, and I realize that you may not be able to share information on this, but I'm hopeful that you can. Can you share any information on discussions with the Department of Justice or DCA for additional funding for instituting the reforms that are recommended and modernizing our Trenton Police Department?
That's a yes and no at the same time. Yes, we've put them on notice that we need the resources to implement many of the reforms that they've requested. We have expressed a willingness to enact those reforms, but we need the resources.
Including, I know there's some desired modernization purchases that would need to be made, et cetera, services. Do you have a rough idea of how much money we're talking for that and the reforms?
No, but we're in the process of calculating that so that we can have those fruitful discussions with both DCA and the DOJ.
Okay, thank you. Regarding, this is for you and the director potentially, one of the very frustrating things as being on council, and this was before the report, is learning actually how hard it is, or it seems, to fire a police officer for excessive force, other violations, or particularly in reading about violating constitutional rights. So can you explain why that is so hard? Is it union rules? I mean, I know you mentioned civil service, but it just seems to a lot of us, if you're going to violate someone's constitutional rights, you have no place on the force.
Council President, if I may jump in on that for Councilwoman
Go ahead,
Williams.
thank
Yeah, it's really follows the statutory process for civil service employment. If there is an allegation of misconduct, police, civil servant misconduct, there's an investigation should be done. Again, if there's a thought that it could potentially result in criminal charges, it is sent to the prosecutor's office, attorney general's office. An investigation is done, and if there is enough evidence warranting dismissal of an employee or officer, a hearing is held to discipline. Now, there is also, not to go too granular, but there's also a principle called progressive discipline, where for not egregious crimes, you have to give warnings and then serve a minor and a major, but that's not this positive. There are certain crimes, there are certain actions that are egregious enough that you can bypass progressive disciplining or right to termination. So it's essentially giving someone the right to a notice of the charges against them, a right to be heard, and engaging in an administrative hearing, making a decision, and then following the same process we discussed a short time ago, where if the employee or the employee is not happy with the discipline it's had, they have a right to appeal that to the Office of Administrative Law. There's a de novo trial, and the administrative law judge will make the decision with respect to if discipline is proper and if the amount of discipline given was also adequate and proper.
Thank you, Director. As far as a timeline plan with goals, I know this is not something it can't be done in just a few weeks, as much as we all would like to hear a plan. How soon do you think we might be able to have a presentation on what reforms are going to be achieved, maybe within the next 90 days?
Well, I think the director outlined, I think there are 13 points of measures that the police are taking, but he also noted much of that has been already implemented. I understand the DOJ was in town today and even acknowledged that Trenton Police were enacting some of the recommendations. So that plan is already in process, but the director outlined those 13 issues. We can send you a copy of them.
No, I appreciate that, and I did attentively listen to what he had to say, and I was pleased by much of what I heard.
And they
But-
followed the DOJ recommendations.
Yes, and if we could get a status on maybe where we land on that, maybe in the next 30 to 60 days, that would be good, just so people feel that they're informed of how progress is being made.
Absolutely, Councilwoman. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mayor. And then my final question for the director, and I get back to my comments about if he's already considering or leadership's considering how to get more officers out of their cars and walking beats in some of our neighborhoods. I'd like to hear if there's any thoughts on that.
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman. So we all would like to have foot patrols. We had them before in the past, but we had 145 more police officers in the past when we had foot patrols. We are currently down to 237 police officers here, which is near the layoff numbers of 2012. Without having the extra officers here to perform foot patrols or the foot beats that everybody would like, response times, if I were to do that now, response times would go way down. We already have complaints about the response times because we have to service the city based on priority calls, which means they're designated as 1s, 2s, and 3s, which are violent calls first, down to the criminal mischief, which would be a lower priority call. If we put foot posts out now, it would not be strategic to our response times. It would not allow officers to readily be able to move about the city quicker to respond to our more violent crimes. But currently, with our new recruiting efforts, I hope to replace all the vacancies that we have. We have 48 vacancies currently, and that's just a number of 288 budgeted positions for the police department, when that number used to be 375. So I'm tasked with doing more with less, and we're doing as best we can. The mayor quoted some of the statistics that the police department has produced under this very much decreased manpower, but I'll elaborate a little bit more. Working in conjunction with the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, our clearance rates for homicides are 89% currently. Our clearance rates for shootings are 71% currently. And that's with this decreased manpower. So I would love to be able to put foot posts out, but that is definitely a manpower issue.
Okay. And Director, my final question would be, just because the way you explain that, and I greatly appreciate it, because I think it's enlightening for a lot of folks. It is for me. For us to be able to have foot posts and have neighborhood beats, would you need to get back to the 375 number? Or is there a number that would be different than it used to be maybe 10, 12 years ago when we had the layoffs?
375 would be great, but I don't know that the city's in a position to do that without help, outside help from the state. I could give back a traffic unit. I could give foot posts. There's a whole lot I could do with a lot of manpower, and it doesn't revolve around over policing, but providing proper police coverage for the complaints. One of our biggest complaints is traffic control, speeding, and so forth. I would love to have a traffic unit to do that, but we're increasingly restricted on what we can do.
Well, I hope our partners at the state are listening attentively themselves. Thank you very much, sir, and thank you, Mayor, for your speaking tonight.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Council President. Director Wilson, I just had a couple questions. Some of them have already been addressed as far as the time frame of the goals and some of the resources. As we all know, it is going to take resources to implement some of these, the plan that you did speak on. But I wanted to ask a couple questions. As far as the plan that you have spoken about, has that been shared with the department and the officers, communicated to their supervisors, or however it is that you all meet within the department?
Well, currently I do have a command staff meeting every morning at 10 o'clock. The parts of this that I've instituted already, everybody's well aware of those things. Yeah.
And then I think I heard you say that two, or maybe the mayor said it, two of the units that were highlighted in the report have been dismantled.
Yes.
So where did those officers go?
They were reabsorbed back into the patrol function.
And are they going to, well, hopefully, where the whole department is going to be trained, but I just want to see if they've been placed in other areas, are they getting the proper training and, that they need to be out on the streets again?
Yes, that's part of the training that we're receiving from the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office for arrest, search, and seizure.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. That was all.
Okay.
Councilwoman Frisbee.
Thank you, Madam President. So one, I want to thank you for the information. I want to thank you and the mayor for coming out today. I think this was needed. The community needed to hear from you directly. They needed to hear from our mayor directly. A lot of questions have been posed to us as council that we were not able to respond to. So I appreciate this. One of the questions that I did want to ask you, and I did hear Lieutenant Sergeant Woodhead, he touched on this, and so did you, about having open forums, open meetings. When will we be looking at having those instituted?
I believe the DOJ was talking to our law office, and they're going to start scheduling the community meeting soon.
Okay, so thank you. And just so that the public knows, there are meetings that a lot of, we have monthly. And our police officers are there at all of those meetings. So I know that I have one that's coming up this Tuesday. I know that the other, my other colleagues, they do as well. So we ask you to just check, call in, reach out to us. But our police officers are there. You have questions, you have more questions beyond tonight that you need answered. There are opportunities to get to them before we get to having them starting their own open meetings and forums. So I just want to say thank you for that. And again, I invite the public to come out to those. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Thank you, Council President.
So in listening to everything, there was a lot of different commentary that was brought forward. But there was a part, we all keep going back to DCA and the funding and DCA and the funding. And we know that we need DCA to give us the money. And I do, along with the mayor, advocate for Trenton to receive more money. But it still goes even deeper than that, because you still have to fix the problem even if you don't get the money. And so we cannot blame DCA for everything. While they do leave Trenton short in some aspects, I do believe that, right? And I feel like our hands are tied, to be honest, right? One governmental unit requires us to do one thing, and then DCA says we're not giving you the money to do it. And so now we get these bad reports and people are looking at the city like we're crazy. But DCA and DEP and everybody else, if they just get on the same page, then we would kind of be all right. It's almost like we're just fighting a losing battle. The police officers that are doing the wrong things, that have done the wrong things, that needs to be addressed, regardless of the funds that we do or do not get. And that's internal. That's internal. That is having the hard conversations. That is making those tough decisions. That is saying what you have done is wrong. We are not dealing with this, and it will not be tolerated. You cannot just go out here and be sifted or put into another unit. You're still out here, but nothing has been done to change the actions of what were done, except we're just moving you from here to there. Things have to change, and this is throughout the entire city. This is throughout all of the departments in the city of Trenton. People that work here have to be accountable to the people that live here. We have to be, all of us have to be accountable, right? Everyone has to be accountable. Everyone has to do their fair share. Everyone has to show up and do the work that is required of them to do. And if they don't want to do it, then they don't need to be here. I love the residents. I love the people. Teach their kids. We teach responsibility and accountability on a serious level. It's not about friendship. It's not about family. It's about what's right for the people. The officers that did wrong on any level, no one should ever get a free pass on doing wrong to anyone. They should not. Everyone should be dealt with. And I think, and I'm gonna say this, right? Because again, I was asked to help out, to advocate for DCA to do more. I need help to advocate that the officers do right. So don't come to me, not you. We talking now, right? Don't come to me and tell me what I need to do to help a situation that somehow it has been manifested internally. Some things y'all gotta fix. It's that mentality. It's that It's that elitist mentality that some do have, that just because you're in a position of authority with a badge, that you think that it's okay to express these actions towards people just simply because you can. You take an oath to protect and serve. You need to do that all the time, every time. If you need time off because you stressed out, you need to get that. Y'all need to negotiate that. You sit in your union negotiations, figure it out. But on the other end of this, right? Internal management matters on all levels. Everybody needs training. Everybody. Management on down. And I've said that from when I first sat up in here on this council. It starts at the top and it works its way down. Some of these officers, they should be put out, period. See, you start impacting people when you get in their pockets and you mess with their money. That's where you start getting people's attention and letting them understand what we will and we will not tolerate. And again, for the good officers and the great officers, thank you. Thank you for doing what it is you're supposed to do, right? But for those that are not, for those that violate, for those that sit and do what it is they do simply because they can do it, or I had a bad day, or because you Black or Latino or whatever, right? Like people say, all the reports say it wasn't racially motivated. Hell, Trenton is how many Blacks and Latinos make up the town? Of course you ain't gonna say that. We here. You gotta do right. And y'all gotta demand right. Because we're demanding that you demand right. Because the citizens of Trenton deserve better. And I want to feel safe as I ride through the town. And I don't want to feel safe just because I'm Councilwoman, Council President Feliciano. I want you to respect me because I am a woman and that I deserve to be treated fairly, not because I'm sitting in the position. Respect all of us equally. And if people cannot do that, then they need to go. They need to go. Director, thank you for coming forward and for laying out your 13 points tonight. We appreciate everything, and we look forward to seeing some things being implemented, and we are going to look into whatever we need to look into to dive a little bit deeper. Mayor, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come to council and speak, right? And to let the people hear. And then to those that came and spoke, thank you for coming out and speaking. But we felt that it was important to give the people the opportunity to come and say something because they need to be heard. And that's just where we are.
I agree. And Councilwoman, thank you for organizing this, for inviting us.
Yep.
And I especially want to thank the public for coming out. They're passionate, and this is very disconcerting to listen to some of the anecdotes that were here. And I know Councilwoman Edwards is very passionate about this issue, and this is an opportunity to resolve this once and for all.
Mhm.
I mean, they talked about things that started in 1993, 1999. Well, this is 2024, and we have an opportunity to correct this, and we are making that progress. I think there are good things to come out of this department and this director still. We still have work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.